Well, in light of the massacre in Israel, BLM has come out against Israel, the Chicago chapter posting this despicable picture. Remember this, of the paragliding terrorists, but later apologizing for it. Meanwhile, the Coalition for Jewish Values, it's the largest rabbinic public policy organization in America, representing 2,500 rabbis, has come out calling on the MLB, NBA, and the NFL and their franchises to end their support for BLM. Here's a video they posted.
When BLM was founded, they didn't hide their anti-Semitism.
If we don't step up boldly and courageously to end the imperialist project that's called Israel, we're doomed.
Despite this, professional sports teams ignored their bigotry and elevated BLM, providing millions of dollars in publicity, including teams in cities with vibrant Jewish communities: Chicago, Dallas, New York, Miami, Boston. Now their grassroots organization and Chicago chapter praised the massacre of Jews in Israel.
And joining me now is Rabbi Menken, the managing director at the Coalition for Jewish Values. Rabbi, great to see you. So just like your video says, in 2015, when BLM was founded, they made it clear that they were anti-Israel. We now see. How can these sports franchises make it right, and will they?
The only way to make it right is they have to not just disavow, but they have to say so openly. We are watching companies very quietly scrub the content, the BLM content, off their websites. Entirely too many haven't even made that move. What is needed is a serious, concerted effort to push back against anti-Semitism, regardless of its source. For entirely too long, BLM was given a pass precisely because it's supposed to represent Black lives. But in fact, it wasn't out there to benefit the Black community. It was out there to control the narrative, exert Marxist control over society. They were both the leaders, openly Marxist, and of course, to spread Jew hatred among not just the Black community, but across other communities. Like you just had in the last segment, the idea that we're going to rewrite history so that Hamas is not a terror organization. This all fits together.
I mean, out of all organizations, the Associated Press, I went to journalism school. I graduated from USC. We studied the AP style book. It's a resource guidance. They made us memorize it. And so now they want to rewrite the word, terrorists for Hamas. They're militants. They're not militants. We spoke to people who were there who said the attacks on the Jewish people were not the attacks of militants. These were terrorists. I got to ask you, what do you make of these anti-Israel, pro-Hamas protests in colleges and universities across the nation? I mean, free Palestine isn't bad, but the question is, free Palestine from who? From Hamas? From Israel? I mean, Israel pulled out of Gaza in 2005. Academia is really failing our students. I mean, they're not teaching the history of the Jewish people and the Jewish diaspora. Israel is the ancestral land of the people of Israel, the Hebrews. It's history. It's written. I mean, academia is really failing our generation.
Absolutely, especially from a moral perspective. The moral failure of American academia is now writ large. You can open any Bible. It's the most published book in existence. Open it up to the beginning. You will discover in relatively short order 6 different indigenous names for that land. Palestine is never anything more than a European colonialist name meant to disenfranchise the Jews from Judea. And that's how they're using it to get today. This notion of an indigenous Palestinian, that's a language. They can't even pronounce Palestine in Arabic, you understand, because the phoneme for a P simply doesn't exist, at least the beginning of a word. So they call it Philistine because they cannot. It's a Roman term. It's a Greek term. It doesn't fit the narrative at all. A person talking about Arabs as if they were indigenous Palestinians just failed history, geography, anthropology, and linguistics in one line.
And the Jewish diaspora, I mean, Jews lived in that region thousands and thousands of years ago. The kingdom of Israel, the kingdom of Judah. We know this. It's there. It's in our history books. Then when the Jews were forced out, they moved to different countries. They moved, all over the world. Then they were forced out of that country, out of all those countries. And then now look at what's happening in America.
They were always forced out of Israel. Nobody left Israel and the Jewish people, at least certainly not en masse, except for very good reason. And usually that good reason was tip of a spear. This idea that it's somebody else's land now is absolute colonialism under the guise of asserting indigenous rights. It inverts the whole history of the region. For 2,000 years, Palestinian meant Jews. Then the Jews sloughed off the colonialist name, went back to the indigenous name. They're inverting reality, This is exactly like the AP. This is exactly
really
like claiming that the quintessential terror organization in the world today is not a terror organization.
Yeah,
That's exactly the same thing, saying Palestinian is not a Jew, but rather an Arab. It's ridiculous from beginning to end.
Yeah, it's literally deleting history. But I want to go back to BLM. It's unfortunate that it took this tragedy for organizations to start calling out BLM, including yourself. Have you heard back from any of them?
Nobody has contacted us yet to say, we're sorry. You know, there's nothing like that. Unfortunately, in BLM, it's way too deep-seated. Listen to what she said. She said, if we can't eliminate Israel, we're doomed. Now, she didn't say it about North Korea, she didn't say it about Cuba. She didn't say it about Iran. She didn't say it about China. She said, if we cannot eliminate the one and only Jewish state in the world, we're doomed. Where does that come from? Well, clearly the only difference between her and certain previous people articulating the same thing is she's not saying it in German. But other than that, this is rhetoric we're very familiar with.
Absolutely. Years and years, decades and decades. Do you think there's hope for the sports teams to cut ties with BLM?
I would think so. Most sports teams were really out to do the right thing. And obviously, everybody who's got any, unless you're a racist, you believe that Black lives matter. You also believe Jewish lives matter. You believe white lives matter. You believe Chinese lives matter. You believe Buddhist lives matter. But these organizations were snookered by a Marxist cabal that actually wasn't helping the people they claimed to help. They were enriching themselves and spreading hatred of Jews. I think it's only a matter of time before they cut ties.
Well, we know the head of the BLM bought mansions, homes, so we know where that money went. Rabbi Yaakov Menken, thank you so much for being here. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
For all our viewers asking where One America News is heading in the future, we would like to introduce you to OAN Live. OAN Live is the best way to stay up to date on all of the hard-hitting, straight-shooting, national and international headlines. And the best part is, OAN Live is only $4.99 per month. All the credible, honest, unbiased reporting One America News offers at a fraction of the cost of cable. Just go to OANN.com to easily sign up for OAN Live and stay informed.